podcast.
Touchdown Ram! Recovered by the Chargers. Touchdown UCLA!
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Bleav Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What is going on, Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, Santa Barbara, wherever you are in the Southland, the country, or the world? This is the LA Football Show. We are on the LA Football Network, LAFBnetwork.com, where anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're on the Bleav Podcast Network. And right now, if you're listening live at 5 every Friday on AM, the mightier 1090. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. All things Los Angeles football, and we have a packed show for you today. Packed show. Too much content. For those listening on the radio, here's how things are going to work, I think, moving forward. Because just covering these four teams, there's just so much. And I hate having to cut these interviews so short. There's so much information on each of these games. So, first of all, you should all write into the 1090 and say, hey, get our guy Ryan more time. He needs a longer time slot. So I think that's what first and foremost we need to do for these LA Football Fridays. Or more days. Maybe a few more days, we can keep it an hour. Anyway, just saying. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give a snippet. And by snippet, I mean, a good 7 to 8 minutes of each interview. Because I have two guests coming on right now. Three if you include Frostee. But Frostee's on every week. And then plus I'm going to do a preview also of this UCLA Fresno State game. So I'm going to do a snippet of each of those interviews, and then you can listen to the entire interview on our podcast, the LA Football Podcast, which you can find if you go to the LAFBnetwork.com. Just look for the LA Football Podcast. You can find it on our YouTube. Just search LA Football Network, or LAFB Network, excuse me, and you'll find it there, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. So we'll have the full length, all of our 3 interviews plus on there, but we'll give you a taste, an hors d'oeuvre, if you will, an appetizer of what's to come this weekend, because we got a big weekend of football. Rams travel out to Indianapolis to face the Colts in a big matchup. See if the Rams can keep this going with the electricity we saw on Sunday night with Matthew Stafford. The Chargers open SoFi themselves, their first home game in front of fans in the regular season as they host the Cowboys. Big matchup there. How can the defense slow down Dak after what we saw in his 58 pass attempts against the Buccaneers? The Trojans just fired Clay Helton. The Clay Helton era is over, and now they have to travel up and play Washington State in Donte Williams' first game as interim head coach. And your 13th-ranked UCLA Bruins, 13th ranked, are hosting the Fresno State Bulldogs at the Rose Bowl this weekend in what should be a very good game. Nationally, it won't get talked about a lot because it's a Pac-12 versus Mountain West. Fresno State's better than advertised. They're a good football team. So we're getting into all of it. So it's going to be a powerhouse show here on Friday evening. Thank you all for tuning in. Quickly, show is brought to you as always by betonline.ag. It's one of our great betting partners. You can head to the website on your mobile device or desktop and sign up today, and you will receive a 100% welcome bonus when you use the promo code NFL100. That means you double your deposit just for using the promo code NFL100. Go to betonline.ag. Plenty of prop bets. There's odds on who is going to be the next coach of USC. You can place money on that right now. The favorite, I Bleav, is PJ Fleck is BetOnline's favorite. Minnesota coach right now. I love PJ Fleck. I don't know if I agree with that. As him being the favorite, I think he'd be a great fit here at USC. But yeah, go check out BetOnline. Obviously, all the NFL spreads and money lines are there, so check them out. Also, give a shout out to Play Action. We partnered with playactionpools.com. Sign up for our contest, Bleav Football Pick'em. That's BLEAV Football Pick'em. You can win electric sunglasses or DC shoes just for entering. I mean, you got to win. You got to pick. It's 10 games each week. We pick 10 games that you pick, and the winner each week wins some swag. So it's easy. You're not picking 50 games. You're picking 10. It's 2 college, 8 NFL games. Makes it easy, succinct. So head there. And also shout out Balance 7. It's a new supplement, used by a lot of athletes and former athletes. Helps your body get right. Head to balance7.com. That's balance with the number 7.com. Use the promo code Bleav, and you'll get $10 off their 32-ounce bottle. Once again, that's balance7.com. Use the promo code Bleav at checkout to help rebuild your body the right way. So with that being said, let's get into some Rams talk. Have a great guest, Lawrence Owen, who covers the Colts, does a Colts Law podcast and the Bleav in Colts podcast. And let's preview this Rams and Colts game, and let's get him in here. All right, Los Angeles. I'm excited to welcome in to the LA Football Show to help me preview this big Week 2 matchup for your Los Angeles Rams against the Indianapolis Colts. His name's Lawrence Owen. He hosts the Bleav in Colts podcast, also Colts Law, and you can find him at Colts_Law on Twitter. Lawrence, what's up, my man? How you doing?
Doing well, man. Really looking forward to this game this upcoming Sunday at 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
well,
it should be
Eastern.
1 o'clock for you. Yeah, 10 a.m. for us. Nice early start for us, LA. But I like sometimes I like those 10 a.m. games. You know, we get used to the afternoon games. Sometimes it's nice to wake up, have a little breakfast beer, and just get rolling right into it. So, let me start with this, though. You guys played another AFC West matchup last week against the Seahawks. I liked you guys in that matchup, and the Seahawks seem every year I'm like kind of down on them, and every year they are good and a playoff team. That's the Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson effect. What was, for those that didn't really pay attention to that game, because obviously out here we're paying attention more to our Rams game, what kind of transpired, I guess, and how did the Colts look, and why was it such a dominant performance from the Seahawks, in your opinion?
Well, a couple factors go into that. Number one, the Indianapolis Colts haven't won a home Week 1 matchup in 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So that's the, and then if you tack on to top of that the majority of their starters have been out, especially offensively. Like Quentin Nelson had, I think, 3 days of practice the entire preseason training camp.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz, 3 days of practice, entire preseason training camp. Ryan Kelly missed like 3 weeks, the center. The left tackle, there was all kind of issues with the backup until Eric Fisher gets up and going. So, you know, the starter that played in that game only played, I think, 2 or 3 weeks himself. So the offensive line was not good. They were not cohesive. They were not in sync with each other, and just wasn't able to get things rolling. And so the Seattle defense was able to really come in and get a lot of pressure on Carson Wentz and stop the run pretty effectively.
Makes sense. Yeah. And I think we'll see this Colts team, you know, get better as the season go on. I would assume, you know, being a playoff team last year. Let's stick with Carson Wentz. What were your thoughts when they traded for him? Did you like the move? Do you think Chris Ballard is maybe regretting a little bit after the tumultuous offseason that has kind of been Carson Wentz's career, unfortunately? What's the vibe there with Wentz? Because Rams fans actually know Wentz very well because, you know, drafted 2 after Jared Goff, who our former quarterback. There's always that kind of rivalry between Goff and Wentz. Wentz in his MVP caliber season gets injured at the Coliseum here in LA, which basically derailed his entire career, it seems. But what's the vibe around Wentz there in Indianapolis?
Honestly, I wasn't initially a fan of the trade for Carson Wentz personally. You got who I wanted. All right. I'll just let you know that up front. I was a big Matt Stafford fan.
Yeah.
Then my second choice, believe it or not, was Sam Darnold. I thought, you know, he looked like crap because he was with a crap team. He looked like a pretty good quarterback. Carson Wentz, however, a lot of up and downs, right? He came in, earned the respect of the team really, really quick by pulling all these offensive guys out to like California and Arizona and working out with them during the offseason and stuff. Then, of course, you know about the injury that he had, whereas he had a busted bone in his foot from like high school or something. Had to have surgery, removed that, was out almost all of preseason, and then basically had a week to prepare for Seattle. And in all honesty, I think Carson Wentz looked really, really good in that game, given the circumstances that he was under, you know, all the pressure and stuff like that he was under, no real run game to kind of help take the pressure off of him. He very reminiscent of kind of like the old Andrew Luck that the Indianapolis Colts liked a lot.
Yeah, which, hey, it's got to feel good if he can get any of that. That's got to feel good.
Right.
Luck was one of my favorite quarterbacks, just an awesome dude, and, you know, California kid playing at Stanford, and yeah, he's a guy that, you know, great career. Obviously, we know how it ended. We don't need to get into that, but if Wentz can harness any of that, I think you guys will be very good moving forward. and be set at that position, hopefully for years, if they're able to, keep him around and want to re-sign him and extend him. And is that kind of the plan, you think, to make in the long term, or just more of a test year and then kind of reassess at the end of the season?
Well, you look at the trade, what they gave up. There's a possibility of a first-round pick, guaranteed second-round pick on top of the third. So they're looking for a long-term answer here. And Reich obviously loves what Wentz brings. He thinks that he will work well with his scheme, and it showed it, in that 2017 year. So I'm not looking for 2017 Wentz. I'm looking for 2018, 2019, Wentz. If that happens, that's still an upgrade over what we had with Phillip Rivers last year. No knock on Rivers. Great quarterback, incredibly accurate, smart as heck, but can move about as well as a mountain, right? He does not move at all. And Wentz has a cannon for an arm, can get the ball wherever, any place on the field. So if we can, I think the sense is hopefully as the season progresses and he gets, used to the offensive line, the play calling, the playmakers around him, that he'll just get better as the season goes on, and we'll have ourselves, the quarterback for the next, 8 to 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. We know Phillip Rivers well. We cover the Chargers too, and love him. We'll go down as the all-time greats, but what was hard with him, and you guys saw it last year, is unfortunately he can throw you out of games too. Games can be on the cut. He'll put you in games. He'll keep you in every game because of the competitive and how good he is, but he can make that critical error at a critical junction that can throw you out of games. But we'll see how Wentz does. So before we get into this true preview, last thing about kind of the offseason, how big of a loss is Nick Sirianni, your offensive coordinator? I always loved him. He was, former with the Chargers, then obviously came over with Frank Reich to be your guys' OC, and now he's the head coach over in Philly, who I know there was mixed emotions about that in the offseason with those press conferences, but looked pretty good on Sunday. Offense looked like it was moving. How big of a loss do you think that is? Or because it's Frank Reich's offense, it's, it won't be too big of an issue, you think?
I think it's a bigger gain for Philly than it is a loss for Indy. Now, I agree with you. I absolutely love Nick Sirianni as offensive coordinator, but his style was incredibly similar to Frank Reich, right? And he learned a lot from Frank Reich. Frank Reich learned a lot from Nick. So that's a situation where I think losing him is fine, because the guy that we brought up, Marcus Brady, also brings something a little bit different as well. Brings a little bit more of that Canadian Football League style offense, a lot of RPOs and quarterback movement, which is good for Carson Wentz. Sirianni was a coach who made you live up to what you needed to be. If you weren't going out there and practicing 100%, you were going to sit a game. That's just what it was. You were responsible for yourself. You're responsible for your own practice habits, your game time habits, your eating habits, and that was a really big thing that I think came into this. We had that on the defense with Matt Eberflus, but we didn't have that with, didn't realize we had it with Sirianni until 2 years ago, when certain players started sitting as healthy scratches. And I was like, what? And I think that's something that, Philadelphia personally was lacking the last couple years, was, make everybody responsible for themselves. And there was a lot of, like you said, up and downs with Philly about Nick Sirianni being hired over there, but obviously something's working.
Make you be an adult, right? These are all grown men. Be an adult. Yeah. Take care of yourself. Show up on time. Do this. Do it the right way.
Exactly.
I remember, and I'm not saying this to try to, pat myself on the back, but when your DC kind of rose up as a hot candidate last year, as he should be, at Matt Eberflus, great coach, many years, and what he's done with your guys' defense. But he was kind of the guy out of Indy, and I was like, everyone needs to look out for Nick Sirianni. No one's talking about him, and he's not getting a ton of interviews, but I could see him being that dark horse. And then out of nowhere, Philly announced he was hired, and it was like, wait, what? Who is this guy? And I was like, I've been telling you. So clearly Philly saw something they liked in him, and that I felt bad just for that opening presser, because I was like, that's not truly who he is. But everyone, obviously, the memes came out, and Was he ever like that? Like when you guys interviewed him or anything in Indy, or is he kind of that awkward press guy, or was that just kind of a weird one-off that started the relationship off in a weird way?
I think it was a weird one-off, honestly. He's usually pretty good with press, and he's usually a guy who's semi-open, but when you're the thing is, there's a huge difference between a small market Indianapolis media and the big market Philadelphia media, right? And he just got to kind of get used to that. And I think that was the problem. He was just in a situation he hadn't found himself in a whole lot. And now I think he settled into his spot pretty well. Yeah.
I mean, people got to remember when rookie gets drafted, gets the pros, that first game, there's some butterflies, some jitters, maybe have an early fumble, throw an early pick, and you settle down. And that's the same with a coach. Like your first time as a head coach in maybe one of the toughest media markets in Philadelphia when it comes at least to their sports teams. But yeah, let's look at this preview now. I've been circling this game for a while. I love what Indianapolis has done. I love some of the matchups we'll see in this game. So let's just start with a couple different player-on-player matchups. And I'll ask you, Lawrence, is there a better – because everyone, when they talk about pass rush versus offensive line, it's usually edge guys versus tackles, right? Like Khalil Mack last week against Andrew Whitworth, even though Khalil Mack plays on the right, Whitworth's on the left, but that's always the media. Like, oh, look at these two guys, two stalwarts going at each other. Von Miller against, it's going to be Rashawn Slater this year, even though same thing. Von Miller usually goes on the right, but that's how the media will do it. But is there a truly better matchup than Aaron Donald and Quentin Nelson, if that does come to fruition, and if Quentin Nelson is fully healthy?
I don't think so. I think that's got to be the best matchup of the year for any position against a position. I mean, it's the best versus the best, right? But I'm really curious at how much we're actually going to see that, because Aaron Donald don't sit at that 3 tech consistently. He does move around on that line. He'll go to defensive end. He'll go to, the 1 tech, I think that Aaron Donald and the Rams defensive coaching, I think they're going to end up moving him to places where he's going to more maximize what he can do rather than go, okay, let's see what you could do against Quentin Nelson for an entire game. Because let's face it, we're looking to win, right? I mean,
those poor coaches can do that.
Teams are looking to win. They're not out there going, we got to see this matchup. I expect to see it a few times, but I mean, not the entire game. So, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to see how that turns out, who wins most of the matchups on that one.
Yeah. The ones that we do get will certainly, I think, be electrifying. Like I'm looking forward to it. So, how is the Colts receiving core developed? It seems like, I don't want to say there's been an underdevelopment, but it seems like throughout the years, there's been a lot of talent there. And outside of T.Y. Hilton, it's like we never really know who is going to step up, with Paris Campbell. I love Michael Pittman, obviously covered him at USC his entire career. So I think he has a ton of potential. Still a young kid, just going into his second year, but how's his development look? I mean, this is a pretty stacked defensive backfield for the Rams. So what do you expect from this receiver core, and who's kind of the guy that's stepping up this year in your eyes, or you hope is going to step up this year to give them some more fireworks?
I think the Indianapolis Colts have a much deeper wide receiving core than what a lot of people actually see, because the key word is injuries. That what has hampered the Indianapolis Colts receiving core. Last year, early in the season, with a new quarterback, new team, Michael Pittman Jr. ends up getting a calf injury, has to have 2 surgeries, out for a few more weeks on top of that. And then he ends up like 600 yards in the last, half of the season. That's not bad. That's pretty good. Paris Campbell, again, his first 2 seasons, injury riddled. Came out this game, looked pretty good. Seattle ran a lot of over-under coverage on Paris Campbell because of his speed and size to try to take him out of the game. And it was effective. It was quite effective. He had to go to different places. A guy that a lot of people don't look at is Zach Pascal.
Yeah.
That wide receiver for the Colts, he is a big-bodied 50-50 guy who's a very good route runner and can block in the run game and does a fantastic job blocking in the run game. And I think that that's a guy that a lot of people overlook. So yes, no one has really stood out over the last 4 years other than T.Y. Hilton for the Indianapolis Colts, but I think it's mostly because they haven't had the opportunity to do so because of injuries. If they can stay healthy, I think that they'll end up doing much, much better. And of course, keeping the same quarterback.
Yeah.
The Colts haven't had the same quarterback back-to-back years, 4 years in a row, right? So there's no kind of camaraderie or, no connection between them. It takes so long to get that connection, especially even now with Wentz, right? Last year with Rivers, there was no preseason. There was like 3 weeks of practice before the season started. And then this year, Wentz is out from the majority of the preseason and training camp. So, it's going to take a little bit of time for them to get that connection and understand Wentz, understanding their route running, stuff and their actual speed, getting that timing down, getting the looks down so they understand, what kind of coverage they're looking at. They know exactly what each other's going to do. I honestly, I'm a little scared of this game. I had this game circled as well, just like you did. And of the first 5 games of the year for the Colts, which the Colts faced 5 teams that won at least 10 games last year in the first 5 weeks. It's like the first time that's happened in the NFL since like 1960 or something like that.
Yeah. Of course, it happened to the Colts and not the Bucks, of course.
Yeah. This was the toughest game because I honestly, walking in, I felt like the Rams were the best team in the NFC this year.
Yeah. I mean, we agree with you. I agree with you. But yeah, and going to your receivers, I totally agree. And, my listeners probably get so sick of this because I always say it, but, I played a little receiver in high school. So I have some relatability and, timing is huge. You need those reps to get on the same page. But even something so small as, every quarterback just spins it different. Like they throw the ball differently. It comes in to your hands differently. It's a different feeling. And it sounds like dumb, like, oh, these are pros. They should, and yeah, they are pros, but it's those little intricacies that you need to get used to. And so I think we'll see those Colts, if they can, keep Wentz on the field, keep him upright and whatnot, that'll start to grow and blossom out there. So sticking one more with the offense before going to the defense, Lawrence. And this is kind of more of looking at my fantasy team too, but you guys have some good tailbacks out there. Jonathan Taylor, stud, dude is, a 3-down back, but he does it all. But then Nyheim Hines has really come on as your pass catching back and has been really effective. So 2-part question. A, is he a guy you expect to continue to get, 10 to 12 looks, touches a game? Because A, I have him on my fantasy team, so that'd be good to know. And then B, this Rams defense, the way they run things with the, 2 high safeties, really light box, they really want you to run the football. Like they are begging you to run the football because they don't want to give up any big gash plays, and they'll just let you milk the clock and dink and dunk until you can't do it anymore. That's kind of what the predicates this Rams defense. So do you think that bodes very well for this Colts offense? And then, the first part, how many touches do you expect Hines to continue to get each game?
Well, we'll go to Hines. Obviously, it's going to go as opposed to, the matchups. If the matchup favors Hines being out there and getting looks and touches, then obviously, yes, he's very good. He led the team, the Colts, in receptions last year with like 63.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's very, very good. I mean, we just extended him for 3 years, gave him like $6.2 million a year to keep him on there with Jonathan Taylor. And let's not forget Marlon Mack. He's still on the team as well, right? And he had a very, very good training camp as well. That's actually somebody I'm expecting to play some this week against the Rams is Marlon Mack. He did not play a single snap against Seattle because they were loading the box and the offensive line wasn't doing very well. You're talking about how you don't really load the box with the Rams. Marlon Mack is a patient runner rather than an explosive, go out. He kind of guides his blocks. So I expect him to get some touches going into this game. I think the Colts have one of the best running back stables in football when it comes to depth.
I agree. And that's great to hear from Marlon Mack after that bad injury last year. So good to see him, because he started the season so great. I mean, I guess it was week 1 when he got hurt, but he started that game so great. And then, sucks to see that for any player. Yeah, you guys have a phenomenal stable, and basically whoever touches it is dynamic with it. So this Rams team will certainly have their hands full as they, I know there was some concern last week against the Bears, but in reality, they really contained the Bears running attack. Montgomery had one 40-yard run. Other than that, they held him 3.3 yards per carry or whatnot. So that'll be definitely a storyline to watch for this game. And if they're able to neutralize that and force Carson Wentz to throw the ball, that's bodes well for this Rams team. That's what they want. That's what they want you to do. If they can stop your run with a light box, good luck throwing against that secondary. And so I guess second part of that question, kind of I answered it myself, but is that what the Colts are going to want to do? They want to get 25, 30 touches to these running backs to not force Wentz to throw it so much?
I think generally any team in the NFL would rather, unless you're Buffalo, run the ball and win by running the football, because it
Dallas, apparently.
Or Dallas. I mean,
apparently, which makes no sense.
Exactly. When you got Zeke sitting over there and supposedly one of the best offensive lines in football when they're healthy. But you want to run the football. You want to be successful because it sets up everything. It sets up your pass game. It sets up, it eases any kind of blitzing or boxes. I mean, come on. You want to run the football. So if the Colts running back stable has 30 plus touches in this game, that bodes well for the Colts. Mm-hmm. That's flat. That's how I see it. But don't forget, the Colts last week used a lot of running back screens, especially bubble screens and things of that nature, letting some of the more significant pass rushers come in and then, passing it into their empty spot. And that's a situation that I think would be in the benefit of the Colts as well, because I feel like you say, your defensive line and your defensive backs are the strengths of your team. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's that middle 5 to 10 yard area that is the most soft spot that the Rams have on their defense. I mean, if you could say a soft spot, I mean, they've been like the number one defense for as long as I can remember now, the last couple of years anyhow. So take what they can give you and don't make mistakes. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. If don't throw errant throws, make sure you hold on to that football. Don't let it get stripped out. Don't give up turnovers. That's the only way that you're going to beat this Rams defense, because you're not going to get chunk yards off of them on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and this Rams offense has always wanted to be that way, but now that they have Matthew Stafford, it's capitalized on any mistake you make, and they did it last week twofold. So a couple more for you, Lawrence, about the defense, and we'll get you out of here. Appreciate you coming on, Lawrence. Owen of Bleav in Colts and Colts Law. I saw, and again, I read a headline, so I didn't go into it, so if I'm way off here or whatever, I'll let you correct me. But I saw it pop up on the injury report, Darius Leonard. Is there actual concern he misses the game, or is it more of a precautionary thing, you think?
It's something that he's been dealing with all offseason. I don't think he's going to miss a game. I think that they're resting him, letting him try to get something that's been bothering him healed up, right? Mm-hmm. It's what you have with superstar veterans. You want them at as high a percentage health-wise as you can, but when you come into a game, you're not too worried about their practice because you know that they're going to bring it no matter what. Mm-hmm. So I honestly believe that Darius Leonard will be playing.
Yeah, I agree. And, at his level and playing the position he does in practice anyway, it's mental anyway. He's not in there, slobber knocking guys in practice on Wednesday. So keep him out, let him rest, and just let him get the mental reps and stuff and do stuff in the classroom. But so with this defense, what's the expectations for this Colts defense? With Matt Eberflus returns, obviously a big keep for you guys. Didn't get hired elsewhere this offseason. I thought, made great strides last year, becoming one of the top defenses in the league, have some talent on every level, it seems like. Obviously signing, or trading, I guess, for DeForest Buckner for the defensive line. And then you have Leonard, as we mentioned, and a solid depth in secondary. So what's the expectations for this in stopping this, as we saw last week, pretty high-powered Rams offense that, that was their first game ever playing together. No preseason games. It was just practice. So they took some time to get going. And when they did, it looked real hard to stop. So how does this Colts defense, do you think, in your eyes, slow down this Rams offense?
So what the Colts predicate themselves on is, and it's sad because they screwed up twice in Seattle. They pride themselves on playing a zone, not giving up the big play, creating turnovers. Right. And stopping the run. Last year, they were the number 2 defense against the run. So they want to make you one-dimensional. They want to make you have to throw the football, but throw it in front of their players. Right. And make 10, 12 play drives consistently and score off of that without making any mistakes. That's how they want to play with Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner, as you talked about. We got Kenny Moore, who might be the best nickel in the game. Very underrated player outside of Indy. I mean, a lot of people don't know who Kenny Moore is, but he's incredibly solid. And then Julian Blackmon at safety was a rookie last year, really showed up, did a lot of good. They want to stop the run and make you just chip shot it down the field and do it with like I said, without making a turnover, consistently having to do 2 or 3 in a row plays in order to get a first down and move the sticks. The thing with Matt Stafford, he's got an offensive line now with the Rams as opposed to what he had with the Lions. He's got better weapons around him. I can't even think. I mean, good Lord, Woods and Cup and I can't remember your guys' tight end.
Tyler Higbee.
Yeah.
Baby
You guys,
Gronk, as I like to call him.
Yeah, Van Jefferson, and I'm surprised Deshaun Jackson didn't get much looks last week.
Just didn't need to.
Didn't need to, right?
Problem to have, just didn't need to.
No, didn't need to. And that's a scary situation, right? I do expect Stafford to take his shots. He always takes his shots, and the Colts are always looking for that. Last year, I think the Colts picked him off 2 or 3 times when we played against him. But like I said, it's different personnel now. So we'll wait and see. We'll hope. At least for Colts fans, we're hoping. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like Stafford is a guy, if he has time in the pocket, can pick apart a zone defense pretty easily. And it's going to be on the Colts defensive line to get pressure on Stafford. That's what this game is going to be predicated by, defense. If the Colts defensive line with Kwity Paye and DeForest Buckner and those guys and Grover Stewart can't get pressure on Stafford, he's going to chew the Colts defense apart. Yeah.
No, I've been saying all offseason that, give this offense time. It's going to take a couple games to really get oiled machine and clicking. But when they do, the NFL needs to look out because no disrespect to Jared Goff. I say all the time, he did great things for the city, great for this teams, but he just wasn't the guy to run McVay's offense. And now he has that. And you can see the twinkle in McVay's eye. I don't know if you watched the game last week, but there was after Stafford's rollout, that 60-yard touchdown, and McVay's on the sideline, just waiting for him to come. Gives him you could just see the love there. That's just yes, I have what I want. And so now they can run this super dynamic offense. The big thing for the Rams offense, Lawrence, and where you guys will have your best shot, in my opinion, because I get frustrated every week, and I love McVay. I think he's one of the best coaches, but the dude loves to abandon the run for no reason. We'll be winning, abandon the run, and then we go 3 and out because they're trying to push the ball down the field. And obviously we have now more talent to do so, but it's dude, we're up 14 points. Just run the clock out. Last week by the third quarter, we had 8 rushes. That was it. So I think that may bode well for you guys, unless Stafford's just picking your secondary apart. But that's definitely something to look for. And I'll be texting you or tweeting you here we are, second quarter, 2 rushes by Henderson, and that's it. Let's see what changes. So
right.
Yeah.
One thing I do, we touched on it earlier. DeForest Buckner, he was good in San Francisco, but he has really became something special here in Indy.
Yeah.
Last year, I feel like he's the second best defensive tackle in football, right behind Donald. Last year, you go look at his stats, not just his 9.5 sacks at a 3 tech.
Yeah.
But his quarterback hits and things of that nature is just outlandishly high. And he had 26 quarterback hits, right? That's a lot for a defensive tackle. And then to go along with, 60 some tackles and things of that nature and 10 tackles for loss. That's huge. And I'm curious, what is I'm sorry, I know this is your show, but I'm just curious what you think of the matchup between your left guard and DeForest Buckner is going to be like.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, it's a great question because it's one that the Rams know well, playing the Niners every year and him being so dominant there, but it's a different both guards. I mean, Austin Corbett was last year as a right guard, but David Edwards, takes over full-time starter, did play some last year as well at the guard position. But they didn't see him last year because he was then traded to Indianapolis. So when the Rams saw them, they had a different, offensive line, different makeup. So, the coaching staff remembers him and knows what he does, but David Edwards has been solid at left guard, had a really good game last week. Austin Corbett, who they were going to test out at center, decided to move back to guard, which I think was the right decision, and keep Brian Allen at center. So it's going to be a huge test for them because what makes Stafford so good is he has more mobility than people give him credit for. He can escape and elude pressure, but it's stepping up in the pocket. And that's what defensive tackle's job is to not allow the quarterback to step up in the pocket. So this will be a huge matchup to watch. And yeah, Lawrence, you're absolutely right. I don't know how he's underrated, but he kind of is underrated, but I agree. He's for sure top 3 or 4 defensive tackle, maybe top 2, like you said, just behind Donald. So the Colts got a good one. I thought when the Niners traded him, I was ecstatic. So I'm like, good, get this guy out of our division, get him out of here. Like he throws us fits, and Jared Goff probably has nightmares about the guy because of what he does. Like everyone talks about Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead, but he was the guy that really ran that defensive line for them and kind of made it run because he had to get double teamed and whatnot. So it'll be a fun matchup to watch going against, if he stays on the left side, going against, David Edwards, or if he moves over against Austin Corbett. And obviously Brian Allen will be used pretty much all game, whatever side he's on, to double team him. So great matchup.
All right.
Yeah.
So we got a defensive tackle and left guard situation to watch. No matter who's on the field.
Exactly. On both sides. Best in the business. I love it. So, well, let's get you out of here on this nice and quick. What's score prediction? I know it's always silly to do, but who you got in this one?
If I have to go by what I saw from the Colts last week and estimate that they improve a little bit on the offensive line, I don't think that they're going to be too much. And then what I saw from the Rams in their game against Chicago, which, by the way, is pretty solid defense over there as well, and Matt Stafford really had his way with them. I'm looking somewhere around, honestly, 35-27 Rams. Okay.
Yeah. I always say I try not to sound homerish, but I just think this Rams is a good team. I think they're a good ball club.
I do.
I agree with you as well. I think I last week I predicted 35-10. They won 34-14. I like this Colts defense better. I like this Colts offense a hell of a lot better than the Bears. So it'll be much more of a game. I'll go with the 31, like 24, 31, 20. I like that. You said 27. I kind of like that as well. So I think it'll be a close one, but the Rams may pull away at the end. Maybe run the football in the fourth quarter. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, Lawrence Owen, host of Colts Law, host of Bleav on Colts. You can find him at Colts_Law on Twitter. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for jumping on with me and talking some Colts football.
Man, I love talking NFL, period. So thanks for having me on. Absolutely.
Make sure to check him out if you want some Colts information. And we'll look forward to talking this Sunday when the Rams travel out to Indy. I'm bummed, dude. I had a buddy who actually writes for the LA Football Network, lives in the Midwest, hit me up yesterday. He's like, hey, I got an extra ticket to the Rams Colts game. You want to fly out here? I'm like, if I had more than 2 days notice, I'd love to. But I'm bad now. I can't just fly at the drop of the hat. So I would have loved to have been there at Lucas Oil watching the game, but maybe another year will make it happen. So enjoy the game though, brother, right?
Absolutely. You too.
All right. Great stuff from Lawrence. Like I said, there's more to that interview. So head and find the podcast, the LA Football Podcast, if you want to hear the entire thing. Before we head to break, I want to talk about this UCLA and Fresno State matchup because I think this is one. It's going to be a very good game. I mean, Fresno State, they're 2-1. They took Oregon to the brink. And when it was Oregon's week 1 matchup, barely escaping Fresno with a 31-24 victory. And everyone's freaking out like, oh man, Oregon, are they a fraud? They're not the team to beat in the Pac-12, surely not in the Pac-12 North. All these concerns. And the very next week, they go to Columbus and pretty much dominate Ohio State. The score was closer than what it was most of the game because Oregon was in control for most of that game. So then you start saying oh man, this Fresno State team is actually pretty good. And they've played 2 very lesser opponents aside from that, playing Connecticut and playing Cal Poly. But they beat both those teams by a combined 108 points to 10. 108. They put up 45 points and 63 points that offense is for real, man. I mean, their quarterback has already thrown 8 touchdowns in 3 games, no interceptions. They got a really good, solid head coach in Kalen DeBoer, who is a guy that hasn't been like a high profile guy. Has been an OC for a lot of teams. His last head coaching job was for Sioux Falls, but his overall coaching record is like 72-7. So the guy knows how to win. And in his second season now with Fresno State, has built a very good program in the Mountain West. And it's one that should not be taken lightly by this UCLA team. And I think it almost benefited UCLA that they got a bye after that big LSU win to kind of recalibrate, settle down a little bit before Fresno now comes to town. So they had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. So they weren't able to overlook it or anything like that, or be coming down off that high of beating LSU and then get snake bitten by Fresno State. So there's no excuses. They've had plenty of time off, but this isn't a cakewalk. So I don't want anyone out there, if this is a close game or if Fresno State, God forbid, upsets UCLA, to be like, oh, what we saw at LSU was a fraud. UCLA is really not that good. This is a good Fresno State team. If UCLA can beat Fresno State, that is another big statement win. Big statement win, in my opinion. So I do like UCLA in this game, obviously after beating an SEC powerhouse. Just the excitement that was at the Rose Bowl that game and what we saw there. I do like UCLA. I think DTR has a solid game. Hopefully he can get going early. We'll see him maybe have more than double-digit completions, which we haven't seen yet, but we haven't needed it. I want to see Zach Charbonnet light it up. Britton Brown, this running game, how the defense flies around. The biggest question in this game is how the defense can slow down this Fresno State offense. Like I said, putting up 108 points in 2 weeks, I don't care who you're playing. It means your offense is clicking. It means you're doing something right. It means your quarterback play has been very good. So, and that's 7 touchdowns in those 2 games. His 1 lone touchdown against Oregon. He had 7 in the other 2. So how this defense slows down that offense, how they're able to get pressure on the quarterback and keep this game within reason and let the UCLA running game get going. Because the big thing you don't want to have happen is let Fresno State get a couple scores, get ahead, and then UCLA has to abandon the run. Because that's what they're predicated. That's their bread and butter. That's what's so exciting about this team is how they're smash mouth at the point of attack, how the line of scrimmage just bullies you. And then you get Zach Charbonnet and Britton Brown the rock and let them go to work. If we have to see DTR sling this thing 38 plus times, I don't love that. So, but overall, I like this UCLA team, and they come out with a big statement win. I think they end up winning by 10 plus points. I'm not saying they're going to blow them out, but I think they get, that 10 to 14 range, and take this one. But it probably will be close most of the game, and then we'll see UCLA pull away. I hope the fans show out, man. I hope we have another good crowd at the Rose Bowl. It was fun seeing that place packed again finally. Obviously last year being empty because of COVID, and even the year prior because UCLA just wasn't very good. It was rarely half full. So it will be fun, hopefully, as the momentum builds for this team being ranked 13th overall, to hopefully see them continue to pack the Rose Bowl, because it's if not the best, one of the best stadiums in the country. Just the backdrop, the history, the beauty, the weather. I mean, you can't beat the Rose Bowl. The Coliseum's close. I love the backdrop there, too. You get the San Gabriel's plus downtown skyline. But something at the Rose Bowl, just in the hills of Pasadena, which is beautiful. So, pack the house, guys. Make sure we show out. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. But I like the Rose Bowl I like the UCLA Bruins by 10 in this one. So, with that being said, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we'll have Paul Catalina, covers the Cowboys for Bleav in Cowboys, plus does a radio program out there. Have him on to help preview this Chargers Cowboys game. And then Frostee's going to join me for Trojan Huddle, and we'll talk about this Clay Helton firing and what we can expect from this Trojans team as they travel up to Wazoo. All right, welcome back to the LA Football Show. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope your Friday drive is going great, or whatever day you're listening to this on podcast form. Hope you're enjoying a fantastic day. Maybe drinking a cold one, cold whiskey, whatever it is you'd like, whatever libation you enjoy. Pour yourself a glass, have a good one, and listen to the sweet sounds of LA football. Segment always brought to you by Brewery X. My friends at Brewery X, located in Anaheim, phenomenal beer. You can find them at Trader Joe's, Total Wine, Bevmo, anywhere you get alcohol in the Southland. Brewery X is. Love it. Check them out. So, like I said, big Chargers preview here as they play the Cowboys in what will be a highly anticipated game. This could be one of the best games of the week. I think it's going to be a shootout. But me and Paul get all into it. He does everything Cowboys down in Texas. So wealth of knowledge for you Chargers fans that want to know more about what to expect in this game. So let's get Paul in here right now. All right, joining me now on the LA football show to preview this huge matchup. First home game for the Chargers with fans in the regular season at SoFi Stadium out here in Inglewood as the Cowboys travel to play our Chargers. I'm going to be joined by Paul Catalina. He's the host of Sic Em 365 Radio out in Texas and also does the Bleav in Cowboys podcast. Paul, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining me.
Oh, hey, just bracing for impact for the Cowboys this weekend. I got to tell you, as good as they looked against the Bucs, there's so many problems. There's so many problems they have, and it's been a wild week in Dallas for bad news when it comes to the Cowboys.
That was kind of the theme I thought too after that game is like, man, they took the Bucs to the brink, but in reality, I think they should have won that game, but there was just so many shortcomings in certain aspects of that game where they fell short, and we kind of saw it on Hard Knocks here and there. What was just, you kind of alluded to, but what was just your summation of that game and what this team looked like? Like, was there more positive or was there more negative among the Cowboy faithful?
There's more positive for sure. I mean, they have an offense that can score. Now, the negatives are like they didn't commit to the running game at all, which hopefully was like a 1 week deal where they're not going to run the ball on the Bucs defense anyway. So what's the point in trying? And I get that philosophy. I don't necessarily completely agree with it, but it almost worked. Their defense still has a great many issues. They did not get to Tom Brady even once. He had one hurry in the whole game, and that's no way to win a game. And part of it, just to sum it up, and Danny White and I talked about it on our podcast that we just finished recording now, is that good teams win that game. Teams like the Bucs, who are good everywhere, win that game. Teams that are almost good lose it. The Cowboys are almost good. The problem with being almost good is they've been almost good for 25 years. So they're not to where they were the great Cowboys of the 90s or the great Cowboys of the 70s or even the early 80s. Those teams were great teams that, people forget in the early 80s, they went to 3 straight NFC championship games. And if Joe Montana was never a thing, then maybe they win some more Super Bowls. But they just haven't been good. They've been almost good for 25 years. And I'll tell you, I know like Cleveland Brown fans or maybe even Charger fans, given how many times they've picked at the top of the draft, may not agree with this. It is as torturous to be mediocre than it is to be bad.
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah, because if you're bad, you can just accept like, okay, look, they suck.
Yeah.
They suck.
Sunday's a drinking day. That's all it is. Sunday's a drinking day.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to watch the game and have some beers and it's going to be fine. But nobody has expectations. Expectations are terrible. Like it's hard to have expectations. You don't then you have to deliver. And the Cowboys haven't done that. There's only one. And the thing is that the fact that they've done it before many times, they've 5 Super Bowls. So the fans, people like me who grew up knowing the Cowboys were great and watching the Cowboys be great, it's hard to watch the Cowboys and go, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Like, no, it's not. I know the steak that you served me. You gave me a tomahawk ribeye that's worth $500, and now you're giving me chopped steak at a Bennigan's, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Easy with Bennigan's. Easy with that.
I like Bennigan's.
That's funny.
Bring it back. Bring back Bennigan's.
I agree. But I think Chargers fans can relate in a way because of the way they've lost games. You mentioned right in the beginning when you started talking, like good teams win that game, mediocre teams or bad teams lose that game. And that was something that Brandon Staley said in their locker room speech after the win against Washington last week is good teams win this game, and they did. They ran the clock out for 7 minutes at the end of the game, just held on the ball, and that's how they won the game. And it was the way they won it, in which they do. For those that don't, and I'm sure you guys have been talking about this for 25 years, so it's probably not one thing you can put on it. But for those of us that don't know the Cowboys well or follow, but like I said, it can relate a little bit to the Chargers. Why is it that the Cowboys have been living in mediocrity? I mean, is it culture? Is it bad coaching hires? Is it not the right fits? Like, obviously, it's a lot of things, but in your summation, why is it that
it's a different thing all the time. It's here's the thing about Jerry Jones that people don't realize. Fans outside of the Cowboys atmosphere think Jerry Jones is some kind of crazy old man that, a wild egomaniac that does things. And like, listen, he's got an ego on him. But I guarantee you spend 2 seconds with Jerry Jones, you're going to feel like you've known him for your whole life. Mm-hmm. And he's put you very much at ease. He could sell ice to, Inuit. I mean, he could just do any of that. So whatever you want, he can do that. The problem is that Jerry Jones building a brand has been great. The Cowboys brand has never been stronger. The actual product underneath it is not necessarily that good because instead of having one organizational philosophy about how to build a team and go all the way through. Now, the Ravens have only won, a couple Super Bowls, right? But the reason the Ravens are consistently in the playoffs and good is that from the top to the bottom, they have an organizational philosophy. The Steelers, top to bottom, an organizational philosophy. The Patriots, top to bottom, organizational philosophy. Until about 6 months ago, the Packers, top to bottom, organizational philosophy. Yeah. So you see those things. This is the organizational philosophy. This is the flow chart. This is how it works. The problem with the Cowboys is Jerry Jones has grabbed from a lot of different organizational philosophies and has tried to put together this, Sunday, if you will, of different things that doesn't necessarily go together. And so, and now they're at the point where they're paying, about 4 or 5 guys as half the salary cap. So you better win soon or the window's going to go out on these guys. Mm-hmm. And that's been the problem is that he's changed philosophy so much. He's changed coaches. He's changed coaching philosophies. And he hasn't changed coaches maybe like he's been too fast in certain instances and too slow in others. Or it would have been nice to see Bill Parcells be there for 10 years. But, when Parcells got to the Cowboys, you just felt like that's not what it was going to be. It was going to be 4 or 5 years and he was going to go. Mm-hmm. And then instead of hiring someone from the Parcells tree, which is what everybody else did to keep that going, he went in the other direction, hired Wade Phillips. And for a year, it worked great. Yeah. But then after that, it didn't. So there's so many. Then he went, well, maybe I'm not going to go full Parcells, so I'll go Jason Garrett. Yeah. And then Jason Garrett, very much to his credit, stabilized a lot of things in the Cowboys organization. Mm-hmm. One of the things you can say about Jason Garrett, he's a very stable man. He's this is Jason Garrett. Yeah. But the Cowboys got to a point where they need a little bit of this, and I think that they didn't do that quite enough. Maybe with Mike McCarthy, they kind of just ticked up. So Jerry just doesn't know what he wants. Yeah. Like he knows he wants to win, but he doesn't know what exactly that looks like.
Yeah. Or hasn't put his finger or his fingerprint on how to do that. And that was, like I said, relatable to the Chargers because that was the same with, Dean Spanos on down, Tom Telesco with their coaching hires. Like they zigzag, they get a Mike McCoy, then they go for an Anthony Lynn, who's a little more old school football. But I think now, and I think most Chargers fans would agree that they found that in Brandon Staley and they've found that driving force that they need. Because I cover both teams, so I loved him with the Rams. And so when the Chargers brought him in, I was like, this is a slam dunk hire. I know probably 30 other teams in the NFL have no idea who this guy is. Yeah. But following him for a year, hearing him talk, hearing him teach, hearing him coach, slam dunk hire. And then we saw that come to fruition in the way they won. Like I said, so this game has a lot of intrigue. It's always the talk of the town. It's going to be a heavy Cowboy fanship here in Los Angeles. It's just the way it is. Cowboys, everyone says travel well. There's just a lot of Cowboys fans everywhere. Like a lot of Cowboy fans live in Los Angeles.
They're America's team for a reason. Yeah. They are. And part of the reason that the Cowboys train in LA is that they can go, or in Oxnard, which is, right there for people who are watching and may not know. I've been there many times. It's just a stone's throw from LA. And they're in the LA bubble there in that they can roll to Oxnard. And it's not Chargers and Rams fans coming to watch the Cowboys. It is local Cowboys fans lined out to the parking lot to get a glimpse of the Cowboys, who again haven't been good in most of their lifetimes, but they're still, still there because of the Cowboys. People are fans. They're kind of like the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones are always going to be great. Mm-hmm. They're always going to have, hot-blooded, but honestly, but they're not, but if they release an album today, you'd be like, I don't know, I'm going to listen to that. Play Paint It Black and let's move on.
Tepid response for that.
Yeah. So, but so they're big in LA, and I expect it to be maybe half and half. Like the Rams game, they didn't have fans, so the Rams last year at SoFi didn't have to worry about the Cowboys fans drowning them out. Yeah. But this one, there's going to be some competition, fan for fan.
Yeah, and it's just there's a lot of Cowboy fans here. So I moved here in 2008 when there were no LA teams. So I remember, and they're probably still around now, but there was like a myriad of Cowboys bars. I mean, there were Steeler bars, Niner bars, Cowboy bars. Those were like the big three kind of Raider bars, just because there were no teams here. So that's what people grew up doing. So that's anyway, that'll be a storyline, which I hate because I just think it's a dumb storyline that's been so played out. It's just, it's Los Angeles. We're a melting pot here, and we didn't have teams for 25 years. So yeah, you're going to find teams elsewhere. And when you're America's team, that usually bodes well. So, but Paul, looking at the actual game, and you mentioned that you don't believe that they'll throw the ball 60 times like they did last week. You think they'll see Zeke involved more. You get Zach Martin back, if I'm not mistaken, which is a huge upgrade on the offensive line. So how do you kind of see this offense ticking against I know that Washington doesn't have a dynamic offense. Dallas, I think, is by far a better offense than Washington, but the Chargers defense looked pretty good. Was able to get some pressure. The secondary is, Brandon Staley's bread and butter and what he's able to do back there with, running a 2 high safety set, light boxes. Like they want you to run the football. So do you think the Cowboys will take that bait and actually run the ball with Zeke?
They better. I mean, they're not going to win most games if they don't. So I think they'll win most of the games, or they'll try to run if they can. I mean, they're paying a guy $9 million. You better hand him the ball. I mean, I'm just saying. I get that, Dak is your highest paid player, but make him worth it so you just have to do everything. I think if you bring Zeke in, it completely changes the offense and makes it a lot easier for Dak to do all the fantastic things that we've seen him do. But if they don't have a running game to take pressure off of him, it's not going to happen. So if the Chargers dare the Cowboys to run, they're going to take it. Now, Zach Martin is back, but Lyle Collins is out for 5 games because he's been suspended for missing drug tests. So what the Cowboys offensive line looks like still remains to be seen. I think the best option for them to do, honestly, is kick Zach Martin out to right tackle and put Connor McGovern at right guard. I don't know if they'll do that this week. I think they will try to run out Terrence Steele or Ty Neshke and hope it works out. But I think that you're better off telling Zach Martin, who could do anything on the offensive line, just to play right tackle and have Connor McGovern, who played pretty well against Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea last week, to man that right guard spot.
Yeah, and that's a formidable front there in Tampa Bay. So, it'll be interesting. So the Chargers historically have been a team that nationally is, not very well known. I think they have a really strong fan base, but it's just smaller. It's like Buffalo. It's smaller. It's not nationally renowned. But then they get this kid named Justin Herbert who kind of takes the world by storm. He's competing with Matthew Stafford as like the face of LA football, wins Rookie of the Year. What do Cowboys fans or the Cowboys media or the Cowboys faithful know about this kid? Is he on their radar, or do they not know much about Justin Herbert yet?
I don't think they know much about him yet. I think that, if you're a fantasy football, enthusiast, you know about Justin Herbert. I mean, he's my fantasy football quarterback this year. So
there you go. He's gonna cover all yards this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm plenty happy that the Cowboys defense sucks right now. I mean, it's going to work out for me either way. So, but I don't think they know him that much. I think at Texas we're kind of, Cowboy fans are kind of get involved, and fans get involved in their own thing, but they're starting to know him. I think that there's probably a huge cross section of fans that still, wonder why LaDainian Tomlinson's not playing. So
or Phillip Rivers is the QB.
Yeah,
still.
Exactly. So I have an LT story for you at the end of the podcast if you want it. So
of course, I'd love it.
Yeah, but I think that but Justin Herbert, I think they're starting to know him, and of course this week they'll know him really well. The last time the Cowboys played the Chargers, Phillip Rivers ripped him a new one on Thanksgiving Day. So I think they fear the Chargers. They might have still been that might have been the last year in San Diego, or maybe not. Maybe the first year in LA. But Phillip Rivers just came out and tore him up. So they're familiar with the Chargers, and I think there's probably some trepidation that the last time they saw them, they got completely stomped in a game that's supposed to be essentially like their homecoming game.
Yeah, always with that Thanksgiving Day. So what's your thoughts on this Cowboys secondary? Because, against Washington, who, really good defensive front, has a, solid secondary. I would say their weak points probably their linebacking core, but overall a good defense. And Justin Herbert carved him up to the tune of 337 yards PFF ranked him the 4th quarterback of the week. How concerning is that? I mean, we saw what Tom Brady did, but that's Tom Brady. That's the GOAT. We saw the receiving core, but with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, rookie Josh Palmer, how concerning is it as a Cowboys fan or for the Cowboys in the secondary when you go up against that offense?
Well, it's 2 levels of concern. One, the secondary is very inexperienced, or the experience they have is just what it is. Anthony Brown he's a steady player, but if you told me that Keenan Allen or Mike Williams are going to be matched up on Anthony Brown, I would say put them in your fantasy lineup because they're going to catch some passes. Jordan Lewis is a guy who can make some plays with the ball, but he's a nickel corner for a reason. Kelvin Joseph, their 2nd-round draft pick, isn't playing. He's on IR. The safety position is always in flux for the Cowboys. They like what they have in DeMonte KZ and Donovan Wilson and some of the younger guys. They brought in Malik Hooker, who's still probably not going to play this week. So there's a lot of questions in the secondary. And unfortunately for the secondary, earlier this week, you find out that Randy Gregory's on the COVID list and probably not going to play. Then yesterday, DeMarcus Lawrence breaks his foot, and he's definitely not going to play for a long time. Yeah. And they already didn't have a pass rush last week. Now, I would think that there's some probably drop off from the Bucs offensive line to the Chargers a little bit, but the Cowboys didn't even sniff Tom Brady. The closest they got to him was after the game when he ran up to him and shook their hands. So I don't expect them to get all that close to Justin Herbert, and I think that's going to mean good things for Justin Herbert. I think most Cowboy games are probably going to be shootouts because I think as good as the Chargers defense may or may not be, the Cowboys offense is going to give them problems. But most games are going to be shootouts, and it's going to be won or lost at the end of the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you kind of beat me to it. I was working backwards to forwards in terms of defense, but with the news of Randy Gregory, with the news of DeMarcus Lawrence, you mentioned they had no pass rush with those guys. Who is stepping up? Just for Chargers fans that don't know this depth chart on the Dallas Cowboys, who's going to be running out there? I love Osa Odighizuwa. We covered him at UCLA. Great kid. Saw he was starting last week, so I'm like, that's awesome. I had him on the show during the draft process, so was super pumped for him as an individual. But what does this defensive line look like now with 2 stars out?
Well, Osa Odighizuwa is one of the better pass rushers they're going to have, and he's playing his 2nd game. Carlos Watkins is the defensive tackle next to him, or Brent Urban, and those guys are journeymen. Terrell Basham, also a journeyman, is probably going to start in place of DeMarcus Lawrence. His new claim to fame is he's trying to be a stand-up comic, and you saw it on Hard Knocks. The other one will probably be Dorrance Armstrong, who is a player that they like a lot, but he's been in the Cowboys in the same role since he got here 3 or 4 years ago. So what you're getting is you're getting a backup defensive end at that position. So they're playing, and no offense to Osa Odighizuwa. So, Osa Odighizuwa is a rookie starter. Yeah. So I'm not going to call him a backup, but they're playing guys who would be backups at most any other team in the league at the other 3 spots. And that is concerning, especially for a team last year that could not stop the run. Look, if the Cowboys stopping the run meant that COVID would have gone away, like we would have COVID 36 right now. It would just gone backwards.
Wasn't happening. Yeah. Oh man. I agree with you. This Chargers offensive line is a drop off from the Bucs, who might be the best in the game. But we saw, I thought there would be growing pains because we have 5 guys that have never played together coming into this year. With the 3 free agency signings, the rookie and Rashawn Slater, and then Brian Bleav was the one guy there last year, but he hasn't played with the other 4. But they looked great against Washington. Rashawn Slater looked like a seasoned vet going against Montez Sweat and Chase Young. So it'll still be a tall order, I think, for this Cowboys front to get past them. And Bleav is, battling a back injury, but Storm Norton stepped in and actually played pretty good. So that'll be a fun matchup to watch. You never want to see injuries, but I guess in terms of just winning a probability, a good break for the Chargers, not having to go against some of your guys' studs. So last thing, Paul, for the preview, and then I do want to hear this LT story. Yeah. So special teams. I feel like every fan thinks their team special teams is the worst. Like Chargers fans last year, actually, they were the worst. Chargers special teams was god awful last year. But I know your unit well, being the former Rams coaching staff and John Fausel now being there. You have the same kicker and Greg Zuerlein down there. How's the Cowboys special teams been? I saw you automatically went to remorse almost. How's it been?
New punter Brian Anger. who I mean did fine in the few times he had a punt last week. I suppose the coverage could have been better last week, and part of that is this is the first week of all these guys playing together after cut down day. So I'm not so worried about coverage and punts. Greg Zuerlein was not good. He missed 2 field goals in that game and an extra point. And he made the field goal when they need him to, which was good. But he's coming off a back injury, and it just never. I mean, they signed another kicker this week to the practice squad. So, it wouldn't surprise me to see Greg Zuerlein get COVID, before the game, so they can maybe stash him and let him get better from his back injury, or they just tell him to say he's out, and then they elevate the guy from the practice squad up under those new rules. But I would be concerned about the Cowboys special teams for right now, especially given that Greg Zuerlein just does not look like himself.
Yeah, it's always don't really talk to the special teams game, but games can be won and lost with that. And
that's what the Cowboys like. If the Cowboys made those kicks last week, they win the game. So
exactly. It's huge. And Chargers fans know that well because they've historically had a horrible special teams unit and hopefully are rectifying that this year as they looked fairly good against Washington, but it'll be a long process coming back from where they were last year. So, all right, game prediction. I know that's silly always, but we got to do it. Who you got in this one? What's the score you like?
I'll take the Chargers 38-34.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're high on this Chargers team. Feel good about it.
Yeah. I'm as high on the Chargers as I am low on the Cowboys defense. So
there you go. Okay.
It intersects at a nice point.
There you go. I like it. So there'll be fireworks at SoFi. Regardless, can't wait. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game too. So, but yeah, Paul, thank you. But before we get out here, I got to hear this LT story. Let's hear it.
Okay, so LaDainian Thomas is from Waco, where I live. And he went to University High School. I did when I first started doing high school football broadcasts. That was my first couple years of doing university. He was not there then. He was already in the NFL, but. He's been great to the city of Waco. He's not forgotten where he's from. You saw that Hall of Fame speech. He is absolutely everything that's advertised about LaDainian Tomlinson is true. But when he got inducted into not the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, he's done that. When he went to the NFL Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, me and one of the other guys from the radio station I was working at the time went up there to cover it. We did our show from Canton, and it was great. We got a great one-on-one with LT, and he brought us and some other people from Waco, some coaches from University High School, to his party that they had the night of the induction ceremony. And so you walk into this party and you go to one of these things, and it is like there's John Randall right there, there's Lawrence Taylor right there. Oh, there's LaDainian, there's Thurman Thomas, there's Andre Reed, there's like all these guys just at this party. And Dean Spanos, the owner, was there. He's the one who put it on. And so I will tell your Chargers fans who's ever been mad at Dean Spanos, I can tell you unequivocally that me and my friend Q, who was there with me, he covers the Raiders now for Raider Nation Radio.
I've met Q.
Yeah, you met Q. So yeah, Q and I were there. So Q, he and I definitely made sure that the Chargers owner paid for all the pain he has caused you, because we drank every free drink and ate every free hors d'oeuvre we could. I think I took some stuff out in my pockets on the way, went from the party to the airport and left and came back to Texas. But I think I took a few bacon wrapped shrimp with me in my pocket that night. Yeah. So if Chargers fans are ever mad at Dean Spanos for any decision he's ever made, just know that
Paul's got your back.
Yeah, during a TI concert, by the way, was more concerned with I think those are crab cakes over there, and I'm going to make sure this billionaire, got everything he paid for in these crab cakes. So that was a wild night, and if you ever do get a chance to meet LT, I promise you he's everything as advertised.
I love it. Yeah, I met him when they did their opening training camp in Costa Mesa. He pulled up in a stretched Cadillac Hummer, came out to stay ahead of the fans, but I was able to meet him, and super nice guy. I took a picture. Yeah. I was there as media, but I had to fan out. I'm like, dude, this is weird because I'm like wearing my media badge, but can we get a picture together? Like, you're LT, you gotta have it.
Yeah, it's easy to nerd out with him, and he's a great dude.
Absolutely. So, well, Paul, this was fun, man. Appreciate the insight on the Cowboys. Super pumped for this game. Hopefully we'll chat a little throughout the game. We got the Cowboys Chargers at SoFi. I believe it's a 1:25 kickoff. Should be a good one, but find Paul, I Bleav in Cowboys, at Paul Catalina on Twitter, does the radio show out there as well. So appreciate you, brother. Have a great weekend and hopefully enjoy the game.
All right. Anytime you need me, let's do it.
Absolutely. Same goes for me. So take care. All right. Thanks to Paul. A lot more we talk about on the pod. So head over to LAFBnetwork.com to listen to the rest of that conversation, but should be a great game at SoFi this Sunday. Looking forward to it. So we're going to go right into some USC talk. Let's get Frosty in here. So slide on in, Frost. Welcome into the Trojan Huddle on the LA Football Show. Joined as always by my man, Frostee Rucker, the great Frost, 13-year NFL vet. Fight on, two-time national champion with the Trojans, and we've got big news to talk about and plus a game to preview. Frost, my man, what's going on, brother?
Man, not too much. What is going on in L.A.?
Not much, man. I like where you are. Look at that beautiful backdrop, the trees, the nature. You look good.
Yeah, it's very green back there. It's very organic, as I like to say.
Yeah, nice and watered.
Let's stick to L.A. and what's going on. You got a 2-0 UCLA Bruin team, and, of course, we're talking Trojan Huddle. There's splash of news there.
Big, yeah. So we talked obviously a lot. I was at the game, the Stanford game, which was it was rough, man. I mean, it was, fans, you played in the Coliseum, like that place gets rocking. I mean, even for this game, it was probably, I think the actual attendance was about 59,000. So not sold out, but a decent crowd for a week 2 during this era. And by midway through the second quarter, it was probably 15,000 people there. Like the student section was just gone.
Yeah,
it's bad.
People were just fed up with the product, and obviously with the product's not good, there comes consequences, and now we're here, and it's a whole new day in Trojan land. Yeah.
I talked a little bit earlier in the week about, when the firing did happen and some potential candidates, but I wanted to get your thoughts because we've talked a bunch off air and known you now for a while. So what'd you think when you finally heard the news that Mike Bohn made the move to relieve Clay Helton? Obviously, I mean, we've both talked about great human being, great guy, but that's not the issue. The issue was, wins on the field. So what were your thoughts? And happy, bummed, sad, good riddance, good luck?
Yeah, man, it's very unfortunate, but here's the facts. You got to produce when you're at this level. Coach Helton's had more than enough opportunity. As soon as Mike Bohn came in, they did whatever they could to provide him with the tools necessary. That's coaching, that's money into the program for equipment, anything that they needed. He's had opportunities, and for whatever reason, if he's calling the plays or not, he's the one that has to take the consequence. He's the one that gets fired, and here we are today. Knowing what was going on, watching that game, watching unfold, and then your phone starts going off and buzzing, and everyone starts talking like, is he going to make it out of the game before they can him? And, he's been on Helton's hot seat for however long.
Since he was hired.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that he had to wear that cloud around. But at the end of the day, you're at University of Southern California. People want to win. They want championship. They want trophies going into Heritage Hall. And that's not something Clay Helton was bringing, and they made the move. And now look what we have. We have Donte being the first African-American head coach at USC, and people aren't talking about that enough. And aside from that, his name's not even in the coaching carousel right now. So we want to point out to Donte that people are supporting him, wanting him to get it done, wanting him to get some wins under his belt, because I'm sure for a guy of that stature, he's not just a recruiter. He's probably wanted to be a head coach, and now he has an opportunity. So I would love to see what he can do with it.
Yeah, we'll get to him because I love Donte Williams. We both have. You had him on your show last year and got a really good interview with him. So we'll get to him in just a second. But last thing on moving on from Clay, because I want to know what it was like for you. So it came out, and we know this for a while, but it came out after he was fired that, he was just a coach that was like buddy with everyone. Like, I mean, obviously players loved him. Everyone loved him. And it's not like anyone disliked him, but he didn't like drive a, I don't want to say drive with the whip, but he wasn't as commanding of his players during practice. And then we see it on the field. There's just kind of lackadaisical. It wasn't smash mouth football. It wasn't that they weren't like working hard. It was like the preparation wasn't there. You played for Pete Carroll, and was it way different under him when you guys were there? Like, was it an iron fist that he ran with, or like, how do people say that in the media, but how does that really mean when you're a football player of being a driving force as a coach?
Hard to say. I wasn't in the locker room with Coach Helton. And if you listen to any of his athletes that have played for him, guys that are still there and have gone onto the pros, they have nothing but good things to say. So I think he did serve his purpose in all these young men's lives. Yeah. Us as fans and media now, I guess I can say that, we look at it differently. We want to see trophies. We want to see the reason behind all the work. We want to see after a great training camp, what is the production going to be on the field? We want to see a different way of Trojan football, smash mouth, pad on pad, double teams. There's a lot of stuff that we just would never see out of Coach Helton. And to say, he has assistant coaches too that call the plays. So sometimes, you're the one that gets the finger pointed at you and you have to, bite it. And he doesn't have a job today, but Coach Helton will be fine. I'm sure he has a number of friends and whatnot on different coaching staffs that he'll join and continue his career and changing guys' lives. But as far as USC, he just wasn't getting it done.
Yeah, he'll probably be the next offensive coordinator for Alabama or something, since they always get the retread guys and turn their careers around, it seems. I'm just so curious when that comes out, because it's like it's such a game of inches always. So it's like, what little intricacies does one coach do that gets the guys better prepared that others don't? So it's, it just didn't work out. So, but let's get to Donte. Let's get to Donte, who I've said all along. I know immediately once the firing came out, it was announced he was the interim. And again, like you said, first African-American coach at SC, which is a huge, huge moment, honor, statement. Couldn't be happy for the guy and for the university and for Los Angeles as a whole. But immediately everyone was talking, okay, who's the next coach? Who are they going to go out and get? And no one's talking about Donte Williams, who I honestly believe he will have his shot to win the job. I don't think they're going to do again like what happened with Coach O, where he essentially won the job and they said, no, we want to look elsewhere. If he turns this thing around, takes the Trojans to like the Rose Bowl or gets the culture change, I think he'll have a shot to win this job. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, he's already doing his job on the recruiting and looking at everyone he's bringing in. He's building that team for success. And, to go back to Coach Helton hired him to be the assistant head coach. So he did do a solid. And he positioned this guy to be in position to really make some moves and make some changes with Trojan football. Obviously, if we're starting to listen to all the media and everyone talking, they want a big name. They want a splash name. They want a home run. We all do. Just to go back to your point, they didn't let Coach O stay, but then they let Coach Helton stay, right? So they already went through this whole process of keeping someone homegrown where the athletes love them. How do you keep Donte if you go out there and get someone with a big name? How do you keep him there if he's already going to get a taste of this head coaching life and maybe, like you said, turning the corner on the culture there and getting some smash mouth, getting some energy, not just energy for the Instagram and Twitter and things of that nature, but get some energy right there where we can go for them 4th and 1s and feel that. And we're not playing these nail biter games versus Wazoo and teams of that nature.
Yeah, which we'll get to as they play in this week. But, love Coach Donte and what he's obviously one of the best recruiters in the entire nation. So it's one of those, if you don't elevate him to full-time head coach, you run the risk of losing him. And that's a huge piece. He's already saying the right things. It's all coaches speak when you see in the field, but I love in one of his first interviews, just saying like, we're not looking at, Washington State yet. We're looking at winning today. Like, what can we do today to win in the classroom, off the field, on the field? And that's kind of that build by brick mentality. One guy I wanted to get your thoughts on, because he kind of climbed up all of a sudden on the USC coaching radar, is, Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, who absolutely deserves a head coaching job at some level, and he will get it eventually. I think it's probably long overdue. But do you like his fit for USC?
I think offensive wise, we would have to have a change with offensive coordinators, right? Yeah. Because it's a completely different system. They actually run the ball with the Chiefs too. I don't think it's just Pat Mahomes back there patting the ball, even though he has 90% of it. But they actually run the ball too, something we're really not successful with. We did have some run plays, but they're not dominating plays that can move the chains and eat up the clock. And, we don't have a fullback on our roster. Those are things that need to change. And Coach Bellamy has had a fullback on his staff or on his team, so to say. Sorry. I'm not saying he'd be the perfect fit, but I like to weigh the options. I think we need to raise the money, and if we're going to make a change like that, make it for someone that has a name and something behind them. But also it's going to really be about what his staff around him is going to be like and who he's bringing in, because everyone's excited in Trojan Land. We have a great defensive lineman. We have great receiver coach. We got a great offensive line coach. You got coaches, a D-line. You got everything on that team now. They just didn't produce. Yeah. So now it's like, do we just flush the whole thing? Are we the Cleveland Browns of the Pac-12 or college
don't say that. Don't get there.
But I'm saying though, is that where we're at each year, each couple of years? It's some turnover at major parts of our program, or do we stick with guys and get someone that can work with them? So again, let's just see how long this season is with Coach Donte as the head coach, and lay the chip stack where they may.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I think, Coach Bieniemy is an interesting candidate. He wouldn't be like my first choice. And it's not anything against him. It's more so looking at, he had a rough go at Colorado when he was OC there, but that was a long time ago. You mature as a coach, just like a player. So I'm not even looking at that. For me, it's more so if USC, what we just went through during the Clay Helton era, unless they're able to retain, like you said, basically keep this staff intact and then just put Bieniemy as the head coach, you're asking a guy that's never been a head coach before, hasn't been in the college ranks for over a decade, to come in, not only change the culture and create a winning culture, but now have to recruit. This guy hasn't had to recruit since he was in Colorado 10 years ago. He's been running with, the best of the best with Pat Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. So unless he can come in and be like, okay, we want Donte Williams on staff still, we want Vic So'oto, we want all these guys on staff, and then you just to be the head, to be the X's and O guys, to get us a winning, football product, and we'll handle all this stuff off the field. That I like. But if you're just having him come in and like, okay, build your staff and good luck recruiting, even though you haven't done it, that I'd be leery about after what. Yeah, Mike Bohn can't afford to just take a risk. He needs to have a calculated risk, not just let's just throw something out there and see if it sticks.
Exactly. And I think Donte is the key to all that. Mm-hmm. He went out and got the very best out there. And now he's put in a position that it is not even his fault that he may not even be there.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't do anything wrong, but do his job. And now he's put in a position that he's an interim head coach. And, if you're listening to, like I said, all the media around, they're not even giving his name a shot that he can do it.
Yeah. I don't get it.
Donte's worked for his whole entire career. And here it is. And I'm sure he's pretty pissed off and he's got a lot to prove because his name's not floating around in that carousel.
Yeah, I don't get it. And, he's my number one candidate. I've said it many times. He's my guy. If not for him, I like Luke Fickell at Cincinnati. I like Matt Campbell at Iowa State. But Donte is my guy right now. And if it doesn't for some reason stick or doesn't work out, he'll be a head coach like Coach O got right. Or Coach O, I think, went to the D-line right away and then was elevated at LSU. So, Coach Williams, I think, won't be a head coach not for much longer, whether it's with us or not.
I don't think Luke Fickell leaves Cincinnati. He's an Ohio guy, born and raised. All his ball has been in this state. He ain't going anywhere. And he's got that team rolling. And I'm sure they're about to take care of him pretty handsomely.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going anywhere. But I do like the I'm hearing a lot of different names. I'd like to hear some more names like Chris Richard out there. Mm-hmm. That is a Trojan that can come home and bring that juice and swag that can, help in recruiting. And, our defense will be solid. There's other guys that, I played under. It's about time I hear Brinson Buckner's name, in the talks of things like this, especially in a university that I can vouch for and I know what they need. Tom Cable. I played for Tom Cable with the Oakland Raiders. Mm-hmm. He's a great offensive line coach. He had a stint at being a head coach. He was, with Pete Carroll. He had success and, exactly what Trojans want. They want to run the ball. They want pad on pad, powers and traps and whatnot, and that's what Tom Cable does. Mm-hmm. So I would love to see a name like that get thrown in the mix. A guy with tough as nails and really wants and bring a real quality product back. So there's a number of names out there, and it's just going to keep going. USC is such a big, high-profile team, school, and university. So I'm here for it, but do not count Donte out. I think Donte will have a new attitude in that locker room this week. These kids are going to be playing a little heart heavy because of Clay's situation, but at the same time, they got to move on too. It's time for everyone to move on from it. Clay didn't leave them. It was a situation they couldn't control, but go play for him. You like him that much, play for him. Change your attitude, but give Donte his respect too as the new lead at USC and run with him.
What about Frostee Rucker? Are we throwing that name in there or what?
No. I know what you guys talking about me on the radio, Ryan.
Yeah. Okay. Just seeing if we break any news right now. But yeah, it'll be a story every week about a new name that surfaces or whatnot. But right now, like Donte's the guy. He's the interim head coach. I think it's his job. I think it's his job to win, his job to lose, however you want to look at it. I think he can prove that, and it starts this week against Washington State. Now we don't got to get too deep into this matchup because it is so new, and there's a lot of factors going into it. But Washington State comes into this game with the same record as USC, 1-1, lost to Utah State, and then beat, I believe, Portland State. So two pretty lesser competitions that they've played thus far. Mike Leach isn't there anymore, but they still run that kind of run and gun air raid system similar to what USC is trying to run, just not very successfully. So I can't remember if you've been in a situation, I'm sure you have at some point in your career, where you were playing for a coach and there was a coaching change mid-season. But what are you looking for from this Trojan team and how they can respond and rise up and pay their respects to Coach Clay Helton, but also rise up and ball out for Coach Williams in his first game?
Well, it's going to be very interesting to watch how this game unfolds and see the big differences of something that Clay could have controlled. Is it a play calls it a 4th and 1 that Clay maybe, I don't really want to go for it, or, Clay's the one calling it in shotgun, or is Donte like, no, we're going to get lined up quarterback under and do a quarterback sneak, or we're going to get, something like that. Those little things that are going to be different in the coaching style. And that's what I see. And I think these guys will play for him. I think everyone on that team, our whole university loves Donte, and everyone's going to support him. He's, like I said, he's not just the best recruiter in the game. I think he's going to be a solid coach. The DBs are going to step up, and I think it's going to be contagious.
Yeah, no, I agree. The interesting thing that's going to be to really watch for is, Clay was an offensive guy. This offense has struggled, but he gave the keys fully to Graham Harrell to run the offense, and even said in his post press conference after Stanford, like, I thought Graham called a good game. We make adjustments every single drive. It's not just at halftime and this and that.
Right.
So I'll be interested to see what Donte does being a defensive guy, how involved he'll be in that offense. Do you think he'll be right next to Graham all game long? Like, all right, push, or is he going to let Graham still kind of do his thing?
I would push Graham. I think if anything, what's going on, Graham's a little bit more complacent. I think the offense, it moves and it gives some stats, certain players. It's not dominant football. It's not the winning edge. It's just not dominant football. And I think he's now in the hot seat.
Yeah, no, and I think what's been frustrating too, and for fans is, and we always talk about the running game all the time, but Vavae Malepeai probably was the most consistent player last week in Stanford.
Absolutely.
But then they take the ball out of his hands and throw 3 straight times and go 3 and out.
Yeah, just look how they started the game. They didn't even run the ball the first, series of the game.
Yeah.
So it's those things that will really tick you off. They don't make you feel good about USC football. But now I'm sure they're going to be critiquing it, and we'll be able to see the differences of the coaching styles by how this offense moves the ball and what they do and how they sustain drives. Do they go for it on 4th downs, fake punts, anything different? We know who to look at when it comes that way. Yeah,
we'll wrap up with this. You don't give me a score, but I like USC in this one. I liked them anyway, regardless of who the coach was. I just think they're overmatched. I know they were better than Stanford, I think, as well, but it's still a rivalry game. It's still a very well coached team in David Shaw. They just came off a tough loss. Stanford was coming out playing with everything.
Right.
With Washington State, I mean, this game shouldn't be close. USC dominated them last year. I think they won. I can't remember the final score, but at one point it was like 4 touchdown lead they had. So I think I like the same this year, but what's your overall prediction? Again, don't give me a score, but USC dominating this one, coming out good.
A dominant game again, like what USC shows up.
Yeah,
what USC team shows up. That's what it's really going to come down. Who is really going to step up and make big plays? And I feel like we have the roster, we have everything intact. We just need to connect. Move the ball around a little bit more, run the ball like you said with Vavae. I mean, the guy's running the ball like a tank out there, and then he doesn't see it again. That stuff right there is uncharacteristic. We need to have another winning formula, and that means running the ball, pound the ball. But again, a team like Washington State, you can go air raid and air them out, and then everyone's going to pat you on the back because you beat a less caliber team that shouldn't be on the same field with you. Again, we're playing Wazoo. This isn't Notre Dame. This isn't UCLA, and they need to have a big, impressive game to get these fans back excited.
Yeah, every game matters. It's still football. You got to put the pads on in place, so anyone can beat anyone. So not trying to put disrespect to Wazoo, but this should be a game that USC uses as a benchmark too.
I kind of am. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, you should be able to. You're good.
Yeah, I never lost to them, so I understand what the program.
There you go.
And I think the hottest thing that came out of Wazoo was Clay Thompson. So, when you look at it that way, USC should roll over them.
Yeah, I agree. And use it as a benchmark to build and rebound on the season. And if they do, I think, next week against Oregon State back at the Coliseum, I think fans will show out. Now that Clay's gone, I think fans will show out, especially if we get a big win against Wazoo. Donte Williams' first home game as head coach. I know the season, there's a lot of disappointment, but I think there'll be a lot of excitement now with this new potential, what's happening with the program. So I'll be there. I'm excited to see how it goes.
Likewise.
So, all right, Frost. Well, hey, Always a pleasure. Thanks for giving us some insights, USC. Going to be excited to see how the season continues to unfold and how Donte Williams does as the head coach and hopefully retains the job. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Fight on, guys.
All right. That's going to do it for the LA football show. These hours go by so fast. I'm telling you guys, hit up 1090. Tell my guy Ryan needs more time. But if you're listening to the podcast, you've got all of it. You got the whole thing. So again, not to harp on it, but if you're just on the radio right now, head to LAFBnetwork.com or on YouTube at LAFB Network, and you can listen to all of the extensive interviews, the entirety of the show, plus all of our other great shows. We've got a Rams dedicated show, Chargers dedicated show, Bruins and Trojans dedicated show. We got a fantasy football show launching. We got everything you need if you love Los Angeles football. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy these games. Peace.